We do this together.
Let's go, let's go. Words of Justice is about to start episode 2. We're here with Mohammed, Chams, and Chris Coulter. I want to kind of get this out of the way before we start. Hi, Mo, and hi, Chris. Thanks for coming, guys.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Before we get into our crazy conversation of the day, which I'm sure will be very fun, let me just get this out of the way. Today's podcast is sponsored by The Hub, operated by Samantha Buehler. If you are not aware of where this awesome place is, let me enlighten you. That is on 215 Chatham Street East in Windsor, Ontario, across from the police station. We have a small takeout restaurant there that is in front of the ice rink at Charles Clark Square. If you're looking for any kind of healthy meals to go, whether it's takeout or pre-order or healthy meal plans, call Samantha Buehler at 519-253-7699 or check them out on Facebook, The Hub, operated by Samantha Buehler. All right. So we're going to start our conversation. I want to invite Mo to really talk his mind out today. He's a pretty interesting person. Let me just give you my perspective on Mo because I'm meeting him for the real first time today.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Right? But I like the guy already. This is why I like him. I think Mohammed Chams so far, from what I know, he ran for city council. I hope you run again. When I watched your race, you were very rational. Your arguments made sense. They were concise. There wasn't a lot of fluff. You weren't soapboxing. And so I wanted to invite you on to talk to me about immigration, because I think you're an expert at this and probably no more than me, as well as municipal affairs from your perspective, and even how maybe immigration does affect our municipal affairs.
Absolutely.
Right? So maybe you can open up with just your thoughts as you go.
I mean, thank you very much for having me on your show. And these are very important topics. And you're right. I'm open. It's either you like me or you don't. And I'm not always right, but I will have an opinion. But I'll also back it up, right? So if I've got something to say, I'll kind of lay it out as a plan. And if you have a better plan, I entertain it. I look at it. I don't just say my way or no way. And that's for immigration too. Absolutely. Especially these past couple of years, we've seen a lot of newcomers come into Canada. Some people look at it as negative. Some look at it as positive. I've worked with a lot of them that come in. It's a great impact and a positive impact actually for the country and even for individual cities as well.
I don't mean to sidetrack you on that point, but let's get on that point again. When Chris Googled you, he brought up, and I remember seeing this on Facebook because I'm on your Facebook, is when you took in the Syrian refugees.
Yes.
What? Explain it. What happened there? What actually did you do?
Basically, how that all started, to be honest with you, it wasn't anything I really planned. I heard a story of a refugee that came in that ended up landing a good job, didn't know the laws, the rules, the regulations. Then when it came time to pay, got half his pay, got burned for the other half. And then you kind of heard more and more stories like that. So I started digging and searching as to where they're coming, where they're getting their information from. What can I do as a Canadian? I'm born here. I'm Canadian. I want to see these people succeed here. They've already come starting all over again. It's like being born. It's very difficult for them. And keep in mind, many of them don't want to be here because they were very well off there living in luxury. And now they've come to apartments and starting all over again. So it was hard.
People have that. Why do people have that thought, Canadians or North Americans, that like just because somebody comes from Syria or Lebanon, that they were somehow broke? A lot of Lebanese people and Syrian people in all of these countries have very many rich people. There is a middle class in all of these countries. That's one thing I want to paint a better picture of, because I don't think, especially the listeners today, I don't think that people have a real proper perspective on what we are gaining from these cultures and them coming in and inspiring our own culture.
And absolutely, like what they do, they come in. Some will have money, some won't. I mean, let's look at it. Our current Prime Minister has been working with bringing refugees in, but the way they do it, there's an actual formula. They'll bring in some wealthy and some that really need the help. I've even did a whole bunch of things that I posted on Facebook overseas with my kids, hitting some of these refugee camps, helping out and doing what we have to do. Most of them are investing here. We've had a lot of them invest here. They come in, when I say with a lot of money, the average is coming in with minimum of $300,000 to $400,000 US, bringing into our economy, building businesses. They don't want to sit on the system or the program. They want to make money, live the way they lived back there, and they're starting over. So they're very hungry to get out here in the workforce. So again, what happened was I found a few of these stories and then reached out and then went down to University Avenue, where the government has the office set up there for refugees, newcomers. Had several very positive meetings with them, whether it's connecting people in the workforce or investors. Nothing self-benefiting. I don't need to benefit them, just help them, guide them to where they can invest their money. Is it a good investment, a bad investment? And then kind of walk them through that process. And in turn, I've got also one tenant that came to us, not through me, but on their own, and we've helped them quite a bit open up their restaurant, and they're doing very well.
Well, it's nice to see that, and to be honest with you, when I seen you, I'm a dad too, right? So I kind of pulled on my heartstrings a bit watching you with your kids in the car, and you're going through this camp, and to be honest with you, it was cool to watch because I don't see that. I don't see somebody pull out their phone, explain to their. I think you have 3 kids. Am I
I
right?
have 4 boys.
Four boys.
Yeah.
So you have the 4 boys in the back, and they're intently listening to everything you say. Hey, Dad, what's going on? And that was really cool. And that's the kind of thing that I want to inspire my son, right? I don't want my son to grow up to be somebody who's intolerant of immigration or non-understanding of other races, cultures, creeds, or otherwise. So it's kind of one of the reasons I invited you on is because I want to have good examples, especially fathers, promote that good example as best as we can in the best form of communication as we can. I think these podcasts give us a way to communicate that we don't get to sit. You and I are business owners.
Exactly.
We do not get 2 hours to talk to each other.
Not
we
at
get
all.
2 seconds, 4 texts. You know, me and Paul's conversations are hilarious. They're two text, done.
Quick
you know,
messages.
hey Mo, yeah, cool, done. Right. So you don't get to really have human interaction anymore, right? And Chris and I were having some human interaction. You know, we were talking in the car, a good dialogue about what we thought, and I wanted you to bring up the points you were making me in the car about the population status and why we need that immigration, Chris, if you could, while we continue this.
Yeah, so excuse me. My take on it is not only do I like immigration, but the thing is we need immigration. We cannot survive the way that we're living right now without it. If we just stopped immigration completely, 100%, today's the last day, we're not accepting any more immigrants. Within 25 years, our population would be half the size it is right now because we do not produce enough kids to even sustain that population. The average family only has 1.6 kids, so obviously they're not even reproducing themselves. And the number is, I believe, 2.2 or 2.3%, and that's just to reproduce yourself because people die young, they don't reproduce, et cetera, et cetera.
So let me just clarify that. You need a 2.3 child per family ratio overall in the country to maintain the population as is. You need past 2.3 for population growth.
Exactly.
And under 2.3 is population loss. So what you said to me in the car was if we were to stop immigration today and we went to our 1.6 number, in how many years would we have half the population? 25 years, you said, right?
It would be about one generation.
In one generation.
Roughly,
So by the time
because-
Mo and my sons are 25, half of Canada is gone.
Well, not necessarily
Or we
that
sustain the
way,
same number.
but it would decrease in size instead of either staying the same. It's just like anything else. You need actually more people coming in to sustain the same size because as people pass away, then like right now we actually have a huge generation that's passing away, the baby boomers, right? And so that's why it would be a bigger impact now than it would be when the Gen Xers pass away and stuff like that.
So to Mo's point, when Mo said you have to they have a great policy. Actually, let's pride Canada for this one, by the way.
Absolutely.
We talked about that because Canada is like second best place to live in the world for that. I think that is the primary reason that we are the second best place is because of immigration. Fact.
Absolutely.
So we have a real liberal melting pot. We have a real cultural melting pot. We have some from shawarmas to Jamaican patties and everything in between. We get all the foods, the ideas, the differences, the frictions. And I think that extra number, those people that we allow in, if you just let 100,000 rich people in, that's not going to help us.
Absolutely not.
You need the entire demographic. We need some lower class, quote unquote. We never like to use the word lower class. We don't mind middle and high class, but we don't like to say the word low
Exactly.
class. Hey, I'm low class, guys. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean? I'm a high class, low class guy. So when we bring in these classes, it is such a benefit to Canada for us to move the entire population of the world forward by bringing in those low class and bringing them hopefully to middle class.
Correct.
Hopefully the middle class. I think we have a better American dream here in Canada than they do in the States.
Well,
That's
actually, we've
clear.
on this list of they rank a bunch of countries under a whole bunch of different criterias, and we rank number 2 for actually the 3rd year in a row. And really, what it says is I'll read the quote actually right now, and that is for the 3rd year in a row, Canada is seen as offering the best quality of life, driven for high ratings of education, healthcare, and public safety. So that's what we pride ourselves on. That, to me, is what being a Canadian is about. It's not necessarily about, where you're from or what you bring into society.
Mo made a point on Facebook that I wanted you to maybe explain.
Sure.
I'm paraphrasing, so I'm going to get this wrong, but if I remember correctly, you said something about if we could change potentially the way that voting was done, and I think, I don't know exactly how you're saying it, but I believe that you were looking at people that were either becoming citizens or on route to becoming citizens could maybe have a potential to vote, which is interesting to me because citizens don't vote. So I think you kind of have a point here, Mo, so go ahead and explain it.
You know, what got me into that was if you talk to all these newcomers and the refugees, they're so excited. They're happy. They're starting a new life. They feel safer that tomorrow is going to be here for them and they can move forward. They're excited to vote. They want to participate. They want to be part of the community. They're now in a country that opened their doors, opened their arms and said, welcome in. They want a voice. Now, a lot of people are against saying, well, you've got to be a citizen to vote. The way I look at it is if you're a taxpayer or an investor, or somebody's putting something into giving the community back, you should have a right to be heard. Your voice should count. Now, when we talk federal level, provincial, that's a totally different thing. But when you talk municipality, I think we should give them that right to vote because they're already here. Some have bought homes. Some have purchased property, investments. So now what's the point of having an investment or a home? You're paying all these taxes, you're paying into the system, but you have no voice.
I think I can bolster your idea with this point. If you look at the City of Windsor logo, we no longer have the same logo. Does anybody notice this? It doesn't say the City of Windsor. It says the Corporation of the City of Windsor. Well, if it's a you own corporations. I own
Absolutely.
corporations.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how does that work? Let's just explain this in Reader's Digest format for the average person. In a corporation, it doesn't work like a small business, guys. It's not a dictatorship. It's not a one-man show. It is a conglomerate of ideas from your board of directors. Now, regardless of your personal emotion as CEO of a corporation, if somebody buys enough shares, they get a say. Regardless if you like them, regardless if they're an immigrant or not, if they buy enough shares, they get a seat at the table. Fact. So if we are the corporation of the City of Windsor, and the holdings company for that corporation clearly is the federal government. So the federal government of Canada, or that corporation, technically is the holding corporation of the corporations of all the cities.
Correct.
And each of those corporations, the holders are the citizens, but not just citizens, because that's not everybody who lives there. It's all people who live within the corporation that are continuing to put money towards it as a shareholder. So your shareholder argument makes a lot of sense to me because of the fact that we are looking at our city as corporations. If we looked at it in the more liberal view, I would not like to see our city as a corporation, but it is what it is.
Unfortunately,
it is what it is.
Correct.
So we need to look at that corporation correctly and say, listen, you do not. Okay, I'm sure, Mr. Chams, you have a official opposition on one of your board of directors. Do you have somebody who disagrees with you often on one of your boards?
I mean, it happens, yes.
It happens.
Exactly.
Do you feel that keeps you more honest?
It keeps it in check, keeps it in line, and kind of says, hey, well, your idea might have been good until you've actually presented to somebody that had a better idea. So it's okay.
And to take all of the ideas out of the idea pool that are not citizen-developed ideas, I think is a little unfair.
You're empty there. Yeah.
You're empty
You got
there.
one person controlling, and pretty much there's no voice, there's no say. It's just one way, one highway, one traffic. You can't really go this way or that way. It's only one way, pretty much.
Now, this is why I invited you on because and I love Paul came up with the idea. We when we speak, you're heard, and it's a really cool thing for us when we Windsor Essex that's the little fun thing for Windsor Essex. When we speak, you're heard. Well, when Mohammed Chams or Justice Fournier, whoever else, insert name here, speaks, we should be speaking on behalf of the demographic that most associates with us.
Correct.
So for me, when I speak, I'm the scarred up, tattooed, rough around the edges kind of crowd. A lot of people connect with that. Not everybody looks like everybody else. This is my crowd. And I hope to speak for them and say, hey guys, listen, in case you didn't voice these ideas, let me voice them for you. And it was really cool to me to say, wow, Mohammed Chams is not. Are you not? Where are you from? You're from Canada. What is your nationality of your family before you came?
Before my parents came here, for Lebanon. So
from Lebanon.
Yep, Middle Eastern, Lebanese.
So you're not Syrian.
No.
Exactly. So it wasn't a point of nationalism that you took in these Syrian refugees. It wasn't like, oh, these are my brothers. But they are your brothers, aren't they?
I mean, everybody's your brothers, right? As we look at it. And
we look a whole lot different. Hey, brother, I just met you today. Nice
it's
to
what's
meet
inside
you.
more than the outside.
We were looking forward to this meeting, right? So it's like we should look forward to those meetings with people that are opposite of us more so than the people exactly like us.
Exactly.
Right?
You'll learn a lot more.
There's a lot more. And the municipality, let's be real. So let's get into some issues that maybe if we allowed these immigrants / human beings.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't like the word insurgent or immigrant because they are dehumanizing words. Yeah. So these people that were born in another country, that are now living as people in this country, they are bringing $300,000 to $400,000 with them on an average. You know, they are opening up our convenience stores that I don't want to own a convenience store. They are doing a lot of things and working. And Chris brought a great point over. The unemployment rate for immigrant workers is half what it is for citizens, and that's not because they're taking our jobs, guys.
They're creating.
They're creating them, and they're doing jobs that we don't want to do. Fact. Yeah. So is anybody, who works at not Green Giant anymore? What's it called? Family Traditions.
Okay.
In Leamington, that's primarily Mexican workers.
Correct.
And I do believe that those workers are being disenfranchised right now.
But just also remember, on top of all that, is that when a new family is either born or moved here or anything like that, excuse me, they have to live in a house, so somebody has to build that house. They need to eat food, so someone needs to grow that food and process that food and package that food. It needs to be at a grocery store, so they're selling more stuff, which means they need more employees to stock the shelves and to cash people out and everything like that. So people look at it like, and meanwhile that family has actually created more jobs than they've taken. So
absolutely, and they're paying taxes, and taxes is like, let's be real. I own businesses. You know how many times I get bled for a business license, at this, at that? Come on, Mo, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
tax
what makes the world run.
Tax on this, tax.
You're taxed to death.
Come on, man, we're taxed to death. So it's like somebody who I didn't know this because I've only been in business about 6 years now. So like it's been a learning curve for me.
You
and
learn
I learned how many times you just get hit up for money.
Yeah.
Here's some more money. Here's another tax. Oh, like our. Not to reiterate the same conversation we had last week, but the minimum wage tax.
Exactly.
Here's another tax, guys. Here's another employment tax for you, right? So it's like we should be seeking to eliminate those things. And I'm not conservative, by the way, guys. I'm as liberal as they come. Mm-hmm. And here I am saying, hold on. You can't go that liberal. The pendulum has swung a little bit too far. A little too far. I call myself liberally, fiscally liberal. It's like you can be liberal with your money and your ideas, but at the same time we have to take care of the things that actually matter, right? Correct. And it's so funny that we are so worried about stopping immigration instead of fixing roads, and those people that migrate here are paying for those roads.
Correct. I mean, we spend more time, like you said, stopping things rather than do it. And a great point. Not only do they, create their own jobs or work other places, you have to also look at how many have come with degrees, engineers, doctors. And remember, they come from a country that is all about education. Their education level is higher there than it is here. So when they come here, their goals are also to become doctors, engineers. So they aim high, which that down the road, consider as an investment. I look at that as a future investment. That person's going to have his children become doctors, lawyers, which we're short of and we need more of. So they kind of cover you from your workforce to business owners to your highly educated people as well. So we're kind of benefiting all the way around with that.
So on that note, actually 5% of immigrants, and I hate really using the word immigrant too as well, because but 5% of newcomers to Canada actually start their own business.
Correct.
Which again is creating jobs. It's creating tax money. They got to pay their taxes whenever they make money in that business. They got to pay their employees. They got, so, and again, they're starting their business not because they're poor. They're starting a business because they want to take the money that they come into this country with and make more. And isn't that why everybody starts a business? Right?
Yeah, and it's to take care of your family. Let's be real. Any guy who owns a business, any person who owns a business, female or male, they started that business for, in my opinion, always two reasons. A, they had a dream, and B, they want security, but they're not willing to have the security of being somebody else's security.
Exactly.
If that makes sense, right? I don't want to work I don't want to work as a security guard for an hourly wage, but I don't mind doing security once in a while. Right, exactly. This is that freedom of choice is what people are seeking, right? So when somebody comes here for the Canadian dream, which is like the American dream but cooler,
yeah, exactly, a lot cooler, yeah,
a lot cooler. It's when they're seeking that, it's like, no, you know what? What if they do want to? Maybe in their country they're not allowed to get a tattoo or they get killed. When maybe they're not allowed to practice their own religion, which they're not Muslim, but they happen to be a Christian or they happen to be a Jew or they happen to be another denomination that they're going to get literally killed for or hurt for or in some form criticized in a way that's not okay. And so they come here, and here we are doing the exact same thing. But we call it, and I'm pounding on the table, which I was told not to do. That's how pumped up I got, is, we're trying to pretend like we are being better, but by acting better than someone, that is condescending, and that in itself is already a problem. So to me, it's like you're taking a pompous position or a pulpit position on other humans as if they are less human than you, and that's always a problem.
Correct. And you keep mentioning Canada being better than the States. You give you a perfect example right now. I'm working with a newcomer. I call them newcomers. I don't like to use the word refugee, immigrant. Same thing. The feeling is newcomer. They've been in the States for 2 years. Now they're coming over into Canada with well over $400,000 US. Now they are currently located in Quebec. I got the call. It's like, we heard you were in Windsor. You were helping. We need a guidance. Now we're leading them to here to Windsor to open up a big pastry manufacturing. You've got a chocolate company also out west, that Syrian comer as well, invested huge, created tons of jobs. So not only are they coming from Syria, you've got Syrians coming from America because they felt like there's a limit there of what they can do as well, and they're being controlled. They don't want that. They want to have the freedom of spending and be able to invest without feeling that there's going to be somebody hovering over them, and that's what's happening in the States right now. You've got a government that's against all that, so they're afraid of their future and security, and that's what they ran from. So now you're in another country that has the same issue. So now it's like, hey, open borders to Canada. And now we've got a newcomer coming in here with that kind of money, ready to open up a business, and it's going to land in Windsor. That's the stuff I like to see.
I had a friend when I was first growing up, and I first started doing like summer jobs. He owned a concrete business, and he was from Saudi Arabia, and then he moved to California, and he had to leave California when 9/11 happened because he was now a terrorist. Yep. So he was a completely fine citizen before that scenario, and then the second that the towers went down, all of a sudden he was now viewed as a terrorist. His family is being threatened. His kids can't go to school properly, and then he came to Canada, and all of a sudden not that problem. So that is like the small distinctions that I want to make as a Canadian, is that people are not Canadian because they were born here. They're Canadian because they accept our way of life, which is accepting of all ways of life.
Correct.
And that is a Canadian. So if somebody comes here and they're a citizen for a year, I don't think they're more or less of a citizen than I am, and I'm born here. And then people will make the Canadian argument, well, unless you're a native, you're not. Okay, listen, I'm half French and half native. I am not more Canadian than my Lebanese descendant, Windsor-born friend Mohammed, which is exactly as Canadian as I am.
Correct.
In fact, you're older than I am, so you've been Canadian
I'm
longer.
more Canadian than you are.
You're more Canadian than me, in fact. You've been practicing it longer, right? So I think you have seniority.
There you go. And if you want to look at it that way, it is. I'm 47 years more Canadian than you are.
Exactly. So, and to me, that why are we not looking at that? So, honestly, pardon me.
And as you said, you know what? It's unfortunately our society here does look at that. If you're a newcomer, you really don't have as much as, let's say, I would, because I was born here, and we can't look at that. We've just got to look at what you have to offer. What do you have to offer to our country? Are you coming here? You're going to make it better for everybody as well. So they're bringing in something new, and that's again, like you said, that's the best thing about Canada is we are very diverse here and welcoming. We're known for that around the world.
And you know what? It's not even necessarily what you have to offer, but also what do we have to offer to them. So, maybe they're coming here with nothing. Maybe they're fleeing their country because of danger. And what we have to offer them is a safe place and help for them to become that citizen that helps other people. There's a lot of people don't start off in that rich category.
Correct.
And, but they need, schooling. They need help with schooling, which is why we have OSAP. They need, maybe they recently got laid off, which is why we have employment insurance. There's a lot of different things that we take advantage of, well, not take advantage of, but we use in order to become better citizens that newcomers do as well. And at the end of the day, again, like I said, the unemployment rate is half of what it is for overall in Canada. And meanwhile, so they are going out there and they are getting jobs, they are paying taxes, they are putting back into society what they took out of it, and that's the main thing there. So it's not necessarily what they bring to the table, but it's what they can. It's the potential that they have at the end of the day. They still have, a body to work. They still have a brain in their head to create a business. They still have all that potential that they bring to the table, right?
So let me involve another part of the conversation is this. A lot of people, when you start talking about immigration, we'll call them Canadian nationalist type people, will say, these people are taking my jobs, these people are taking opportunities, they are being treated better than the average Canadian citizen, they're getting more money to start their businesses, they're getting more money if they have 5 kids. I don't know how true that is.
It's barely true.
I don't think it's true.
It's not. Actually, a lot of people, and I noticed this circulate around on Facebook that it's like they get, like a Syrian refugee gets more money than a pensioner. Which is just not true. Like people, okay, look, whenever you first come to Canada, first of all, you have to pay fees to become a refugee. You got to pay, I believe it's $975 just to have an application to become a refugee. So there's money already. But then if they get selected and they say, yes, okay, we're accepting you as a refugee, and so here's some money to go and put down first and last month's rent on a apartment, go buy yourself a bed, go put some food in a fridge and everything like that. And first of all, that money is not very much. I don't actually have the exact numbers.
That also happens to ODSP, by the way.
Correct.
Anybody on OW or ODSP gets a help package or a startup. It's called a startup package.
Correct.
And that's a startup package. And why wouldn't a country startup package be a little bit bigger than you're already in the country and we've given you 10 startup packages?
But that biggest thing that circulates on Facebook is they take that startup package, which I'm not sure, like I said, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's around like $1,200 or something like that, which by the way isn't much at all. And people think that that's what they get every single month. It's not true at all. They get it one time, and then yes, they get a certain amount every single month up to 12 months. So people say, oh, look, they're making $20,000 a year. Well, yeah, for the first year, they're getting that. And also, that's for a family of 4, which I don't know. I don't know exactly.
$20,000 to a family of 4 or 5, Mo. What does that do for us?
I'll tell you right now, that'll get you maybe about a couple months, and you're done.
You're not even going to last 2 months on $20,000.
So think about no, exactly, yeah, and especially when you're a newcomer, you need to pay first and last month. You need to buy all your furniture. You need to buy all the food. Like people sort of look at it like, oh, that's a lot of money to put down as first and last month's rent. Well, no, it's not, because really, how much is an apartment? Even a really, really cheap apartment in Windsor, which is one of the cheapest housing markets in Canada, is still gonna run you $600 for a decent one that you actually want your family to live in.
Subjectively, though, if you realize that would only be offered to those with the income bracket that would allow that startup package to even matter. So when you look at the demographic we talked about when Mohammed first started speaking, you're looking at, okay, there's a range from somebody who makes $20,000 a year to $1 million a year. And only 20% of that population is going to need a startup package. And the other 80% of the population is paying for those startup packages with the fees, the taxes. And by the way, the 20% that need the startup package is being supported by the 20% of doctors, nurses, lawyers, and degrees that we're bringing in, which are white-collar workers. And you have no problem going to that Pakistani doctor when you're sick. And you have no problem going to the Indian accountant. You have no problem doing this stuff, guys. But then all of a sudden we start having a debate. It's like, oh, I don't like those people. What do you mean those people? You mean the people that you deal with every day? You mean the people that do everything in your entire life and you're taking them for granted? I have a real big problem with that, a huge problem with that.
And not only that, you got to remember there's also a group in there that are sponsored. We always forget the ones that are sponsored. What does a sponsorship mean? It means basically I'm going to bring somebody in. Now I'm going to be responsible for them for the first full year. It means the government's not going to step in and help you. So a lot of these people are coming up as well under a sponsorship. So you have that percentage that is, in need and need to start up, and they well deserved. And again, then you have that group that's being sponsored to come in here, which means the family's already taken the responsibility and the burden of the financial situation with no government help. And then you have the wealthier. So there are 3 categories, and I think it balances out quite well.
And why wouldn't we want somebody who's, okay, this person's come here, let's use Syria, because it seems like a good country to talk about today. So we'll use Syria. Somebody comes here from Syria, and they work very hard for a decade. And they work that whole decade to put away $300,000 to $500,000, which is about what you probably need, I would assume, to sponsor an actual family for a year.
Average income, correct.
Right? So you need to put $500,000 away to sponsor that family that you've probably known your whole life, that you've been literally working 16 hours a day, 20 hours a day, barely sleeping for 10 years just to bring that over. To begrudge that idea is the silliest, most dehuman idea I've ever heard in my life. To say that somebody can't work hard to allow their family to come to the country. That is dumb.
By the way, the numbers,
things dumb, but that is dumb.
The numbers for it are here. I just actually pulled up the Government of Canada website, and since November 4th, 2015, there's been 40,081 immigrants. Syrian refugees. So as far as immigrants go, last year we actually accepted 321,000 immigrants. So that's such a small percentage, really, and that's over the course of 2.5 years. And also the ones that were government assisted was 21,876. So the other half basically were sponsored. Exactly what you said. So, and also the numbers for how much they get when they come to Canada is $2,065 for a family of 4. And they get $768 a month for 1 year for a family of 4.
You know what hilarious, and this is a fact off the top of my head, but it's not a number fact, is do you really think that those refugees that are at an absolute scrutiny are committing more crime than the natural-born Canadians?
No.
Not a chance. Not a chance. No, these people are not committing crimes. They're obeying the law. They're driving the speed limit. They're paying their taxes. They're actually better Canadians than most Canadians. So let's be real. So it's like it's hard to say. Like I've heard this argument and I shut it down quick on Facebook. I don't usually get into big arguments on Facebook, but I did on this one because people are saying, well, if you accept these Syrian refugees and this was a smash against Trudeau, it's you're letting all these criminals in our country. Guys, they are fleeing the criminals of their country. They are not criminals. They are in not only poverty, but fear in a warlike crisis. There is, people like ISIS, actually terror groups, real warlords, real rapists, real murderers, homicidal maniacs that are out there driving these people out of entire countries. And then we want to think that they're criminals before they've even had a chance to get here. That's like getting kicked out of class before you said a word. That makes no sense. We didn't even give them a chance to actually be a human. And I don't think these people are coming here to create any havoc. I think they're clearly coming here to escape havoc. And it's unfair at all for us to give them another barrier once they've already got through the other barriers. So you're going to leave the barrier of scrutiny to come to the home of scrutiny. And if anything, if this podcast changes 10 brains, I'm with it. Because we got to change a little bit at a time. This dialogue has to happen.
If it changes one, it's worth it.
If it changes
Exactly.
one, it's changing mine while I'm having the conversation. We're already winning, right? Yeah. And that's why I wanted Mohammed to come on, because I do think we need to share these perspectives, and they need to be vocalized, because especially in the next election, I don't want to be sitting there talking about things that we should have talked about. Let's not wait till the election time for talking points, guys.
Correct. And unfortunately, that's the thing. And when this first started up, you sent me the link. I messaged you back saying this was an excellent idea, because right now it's controlled by media. Media controls the votes. Media controls the mind. They can put one thing out there and then people are going to fall for it. We need more of, this is an excellent program to kind of voice out the truth. There's nothing to hide. It is what it is, and it's black and white. And that's where the time and age is coming. You'll notice newspapers are slowly getting out. News is getting out because it's no longer real news. It's not genuine.
Quote unquote are the news.
Exactly.
We speak, and this is going to be to Paul's credit. We speak will be, and I'm making this well before. Remember I said this, guys. We Speak will be a bigger media publication than the Windsor Star, than the Windsor Square, than any of these media publications. Why? Because we're going to have honest conversations. We're not looking for talking points. We're not trying to do our political rhetoric within the idea. And to have honest conversations is what the entire spectrum is missing, right? So we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to come back in just a few minutes and talk about little municipal affairs, what we can do to change them, and what is realistic to expect maybe for the next election and what we should be talking about. So stay tuned, guys.
Tell you
All right, we're back here with the second half of the second episode of the Words of Justice podcast. Again, we're talking immigration and municipal affairs with Mohammed Chams and Chris Coulter and myself. Welcome back, guys, to our second half. Let's get into some fun topics. Let's get into what we can do on a municipal side of things, Mr. Chams, that you think we could do now, and it can have a big impact for the now and for the later. What are the first things that come to your head when in your councilman to be mind as to what we can do?
What we can do to improve the city, for example,
Sure.
the way we, there's a lot of things we can do. I brought up a lot of great points at last election. Now, a lot of people had said there is smoke in the mirror, right? I've challenged a lot of things, even with Mayor Dilkins at that time. They featured us on CBC when I had challenged them on a law he was trying to change. And I just said it's just a waste of time and it's a political move. And, it turns out I was right. And that's what we look at. We look at for, realistic things. And I ran my campaign basically on a platform that was realistic and it made sense. Not just to sell you on the idea. Hey, I just want to be elected. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. And then once I'm in, it's a totally different thing. So for everything I kind of put on that platform, which, when I announce again this year, the platform we put in place, and I'm going to show you how it's going to be done. I'm not just going to tell you how it's going to be done. Look, our property taxes have went up. And guess what? They were due to go up. I said that during the last election. I was the only candidate that stood up and said, our taxes are going to go up. And everybody looked at me like, whoa, what do you mean? We're used to a tax freeze. We all know. Just look at your house maintenance. You can run your house with zero expense for 20 years, no problem. Your neighbor can take care of his house over the 20 years. You're going to have a bad roof. You can have this, and all of a sudden you're going to get a big bill. So what happens when we're not spending? You're going to end up spending twice as much down the road.
You're reacting instead of being proactive.
Exactly.
You're looking at proactive expenditures.
Exactly. And now I'm looking at over the years of things unfolding throughout the city I'm very happy and excited. Some of the things that they've tried is because they were on my platform. So at one point they were kind of just laughing at it, saying that's not realistic, but yet they brought them up to the table. The expressway, for example, there's certain things, but just like, a restaurant business, a chef, do you ever give away the ingredients? Absolutely not. You give away so much. So behind my ideas, there's also an execution for it, right? I've got the plan. I know how I'm going to go after it and how to get it and how to sell that idea. And that's a platform I ran on. As a business person, I believe the city should be run by a business-minded person because the city is a business.
It's a corporation.
Yeah, it's a corporation. You've got to make that decision as if you're a business person. Is it the right decision or the right investment, for example, to bring us ahead?
So we're electing CEO, not mayor. Let's be real about that. Mayor equals CEO in the corporate city of Windsor. So Drew Dilkins is the CEO of the corporation of the city of Windsor.
Correct. And then you look at the city council, and when I ran during elections, I never knocked on doors, spoke with people. Not once did I say, vote me in. I said, hire me. You're my boss. Here's my resume. I want to work for you. And I'm going to give your voice back at the table because that's the problem we have in Windsor. Throughout the last election, I'm guaranteed we're going to have it again this time, is lack of trust. Candidates will say what they've got to say, then they turn around and do the opposite. That makes it harder now for the next guy that's really willing to work and do the right things to get in because they're going to look at you. You're no different than anybody else. You're at my door feeding me the information. And once you're in, you're not going to look at me for 4 years.
Narcissistic, self-serving, right? So I would say to upgrade your idea, I would say to allow me to serve you. Don't just hire me, but as a business owner, you know what happens when you come to my restaurant? I serve you.
Give you the best service.
You. I serve you lunch. I don't give you lunch. I don't just prepare the lunch. We serve our customers. I'm sure when you're going to do your development of properties and you're talking to somebody through the property, you're literally looking to serve. What can I do as Mr. Chams to provide you with whatever you need to be successful? I am serving you, right? And I think if we take that approach, and like you said, with entrepreneurs, we have a lot of political jokers in this city that I'm looking forward to kind of revealing by just having honest conversations, right? People usually tell you everything you need to know about them if you just let them talk. And they've talked enough. So they keep talking, but nothing's being said. A lot of words, no speech. Nothing come out of it. So to me, I'm so sick of the talking points that I'm hoping that I'm trying to pump you up a little bit because I want you to come in there like an entrepreneurial giant and say, listen, not just a businessman, but an entrepreneur. There's a difference there. An entrepreneur sees opportunity. They see challenge as an opportunity to grow. They don't have fixed mindsets. They're excited to tackle problems. Not a lawyer. We don't need lawyers in suits that deliberate and argue for hours. We need entrepreneurs that have seconds to deal with complex problems and provide solutions within minutes. And if you can't be like that, then I don't want you to run my corporation, my city, my life, my rights. I don't want you to do any of those things if it takes you a year to do something that should take you 10 seconds. That's my biggest argument right across the board, is like, can we take the solutions approach instead of the problems approach? I don't want to sit with, if you and I are both running, and I will run for council in the future, I'm sure, maybe not this election, but if we're both running, I don't want to sit and argue with you for the entire election. I want to say, okay, whether you win or I win, what are we going to do here?
Correct.
Tell you
Have a
what,
plan.
if you win, I'll back you up. If you win, I'll serve you. If I win, you serve me. We all serve them. We serve the people around us. We don't. It's not about me. It's not about you. The second we can take our egos out of the problem, I think the problem would be solved.
Absolutely, and they're very simple. When you look at the way the city is run, like you said, you need an entrepreneur. You need somebody that's not going to be self-serving. You've got to have somebody there that's got the passion, that gets excited. When you get that rush, what's your rush? You ask me, well, why do you want this so bad? You don't need it, for example. It's like, it's my city. I was born in London, but moved here when I was 1. I lived here all my life. Now I'm raising 4 children. I want good opportunity for them. I want change as well. Again, I might bring an idea that might be a good idea, may not be a good idea, but if it's not good, come to me. Tell me why it's not a good idea. Let's discuss it. But from what I've seen, I've put some really good ideas out there, and some were just brought up. Just one recently in a paper I commented on Facebook. The boarded up homes, 12 years. 12 years.
And I'm with you on this. I'm with you. Why would we not be like, okay, here's the problem. We are allowing business owners right now in Windsor to get money for keeping vacant buildings.
And that was one of my biggest arguments is vacancy. You get a tax credit, a tax break. And if you looked at my platform the last time I ran, and I'll run the same thing right now. Like they just ran in a paper yesterday, the city's cracking down on boarded up properties, but they're targeting the bridge. Well, the bridge already has and got their answer. They're tearing down, which they should have done, 8 years ago.
Like Indian Road you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it should have been done a while. I always said it. I says, you can argue with the bridge owner for as long as you want. In the meantime, let them demolish, do green space, let the West End enjoy their life while you're arguing in the background. At the end, 8 years later, what happened? Millions of dollars spent, and they're getting tore down. So it should have been done 8 years ago and saved all this money.
We've wasted millions of
We've
dollars,
wasted
tons of
millions that
conversation.
could have went somewhere else. And not only do we look at boarded up properties, commercial properties, I said it as well. City's cracking down on residents only. We have many vacant commercial big corporations, without naming them, the companies that are still open right now, drive-throughs have shut down old locations and board them up with concrete blocks.
Should they not have fees associated with that? To me, that's an eyesore. And you said the word eyesore the other day when you posted on Facebook that
The signs
the
there that were
signs
posted,
on
absolutely.
the beam
Yeah.
there where there's like 10 signs and it, like the buddy that got to the top was really
Must have worked really hard
He
to
was a
get to it.
go-getter, that guy with the 20-foot
Oh,
ladder.
he worked up there. Yeah, I want to be above all, and he had that initiative to get it. And
Yeah.
and this is, if you look at it, I didn't just say get rid of the eyesore or let's get rid of the board up homes. I said, it's time to penalize instead of credit. You beautify your place, you're getting taxed. You get taxed more for beautifying it. The guy that leaves it vacant is getting a tax credit. So what I say is, if the
Reverse
potential,
that.
so if the potential value of that property is $200,000, well, I'm going to tax you based on a potential value. You either spend the money, fix it up, and make money on it instead of taking the credit, or I'm going to tax you on that. That's going to motivate a lot of people to say, hey, I can no longer use this as a tax haven and a safety.
Let's call it the blight tax.
Exactly.
It's blight. We do not want blight in our city. That's called cancer, and we don't want cancer. And the only way to get cancer is to cut the tumor out first and make all of the cells around it healthier. So if you look at a home as a cell or a business as a cell, and this is all cells as part of an organization, that organism is an organization. That organization is called the corporate city of Windsor. And the cancers like Indian Road or parts of Droulard. Droulard is going through an amazing. We're on Droulard right now.
It's come a long way.
Oh my God, has it come a long way? And I'm definitely going to be part. And Paul, thank you for being part of that revitalization. But I'm also going to take space. You're probably going to take space, because we as entrepreneurs see this is Fort City, guys. There's history here. There's an energy in Droulard. When I first moved to Windsor, I moved to Droulard, and from Kirkland Lake, and I came down here and I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. And I remember seeing the Henry Ford statues and the cool murals and the Border City Boxing Club, and there's all this history and energy. But we've allowed the blight and the business owners who are getting paid to keep that blight to blot out the motivating factors of our city. When my two favorite spaces, and I lived on both these roads, was Brock and Droulard. General Brock being one of the most inspirational Canadian figures of all time. Right. And the reason that we have a Canada is because of Sandwich's fight. And by the way, General Brock linking with Chief Tecumseh and Chippewa and not being racist and being collaborative and fighting the Americans because we have a different ideology. So when I moved to Windsor, I learned about General Brock in my grade 6 speech, and I learned about Henry Ford, and I learned about Al Capone and all these guys that were part of Windsor's history. And I said, well, why aren't we a little bit gangster, a little bit entrepreneurial?
A little of everything.
You know, we're a little bit like this was Sin City when I first got here. You know,
Yes, that's the title we had across the world.
we had Sin City now, and Rose City's cool, and Rose City politics sounds cool. I wouldn't mind Sin City politics. I don't mind the fact that we could be the Canadian Las Vegas. What are we doing? We don't. When I worked in downtown Windsor 10 years ago, it felt like Sin City.
Something else.
Oh, it was something else. There was an energy and a vibe, and downtown Windsor was like a thriving, awesome place. And there wasn't a weekend I didn't go out that I didn't see all my other awesome friends too. We just every Saturday night see you at 29 Park, bro. Every Saturday night we'll be out. Now it's not that. Now there's a fear. There's a fear associated. There's a danger. There's like almost a low classness. Downtown wasn't low class. It was high class.
It was the mall of the city.
It was the mall.
It was the mall of the city.
Saturday night, you could find everybody who mattered in Windsor walking down Olette. I would just take business cards back in the day and walk up and down Olette, not even go in the bars, and just meet everybody I needed to meet. And on Monday morning, I had business all day long. So part of the Sin City mode, in my opinion, for Windsor, is to allow ourselves to thrive in all ways. Culturally, we have lots of artists. We have lots of dancers, singers, writers, fighters. We have all kinds of artists in Windsor that are not being heard or portrayed. Why? Because we're run by lawyers instead of leaders.
Correct.
Right, and that's my biggest idea for you. That maybe we can lead the leaders instead of listen to the lawyers.
And again, that's the thing. In politics, it's very difficult. When you're doing a couple of things, I said it, last election, is what's the hardest thing is not only you're trying to actually get somebody to, hire you in, vote you in, you've got to actually convince that person to go out and vote, because a lot of them don't vote. A lot of them do not even bother to vote because they've just lost trust in the system. So now I'm at the door sitting there trying to sell you me, saying, look, here's what I've got planned. I'm like you, no different. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. We need change. We need something positive. We need to really move forward with things. But it's like, I don't vote. Okay, now how can I convince you to vote? Right? So now you're doing two things instead of
and then if we convince them to vote, and we convince them that they have enough time during their busy life to go at like 2:00 in the afternoon to some school somewhere, which is a terrible, let's not get into it too far, but the voting system itself is terrible. Everything we need to be able to vote from our phones, guys. We need to be able to vote from our phone. I don't know what we're doing here. Nobody has time to go and vote. And who has time to even register to vote? To register to vote is something nobody does, especially the people that we need to listen to, which are the newcomers, newcomers from other countries and newcomers from up and up. Like, I want to listen to the 16-year-olds that have recently become 18. I want to listen to the millennials that we always try to disenfranchise. The millennials have been taking a beating lately. Everybody's hating on the millennials instead of giving them a voice. Nobody's giving them an opportunity to speak. Their ideas don't matter because the 40-plus crowd is like keeping them subdued in some kind of way. So I honestly see like a cultural war to be had more than – I don't see this next election as an election, which is why, this podcast is important for me. I don't see it as an election of politics. I see it as a cultural shift. And we need to figure out, how do we now get these disenfranchised or unregistered voters to be able to vote and actually swing that? Because I think that the 30% of people that don't vote, only 30% of people in Windsor do vote.
It's a very low turnout. We've got a very low turnout.
Incredibly low turnout. Yep. So I want to appeal to the 70% of people that don't vote. I don't need to beat the 1%. I need to establish a second 1%. We don't need to fight the elites. I think that's the approach, and I'm hoping maybe even to inspire you. We don't need to be battling the old system. We need to build the new system alongside the old system to prop up the old system until we can get rid of it. Because you don't just get rid of it in a day.
It takes time.
It takes time. We need to transition. We need to stop arguing. Like you said, we needed to tear those buildings down years ago, allow there to be parks and recreational space, and then it would have been nice. It would have been flourishing.
It's
already.
a win-win situation for everybody at that time. Save the millions, do that. West Windsor would have enjoyed their life and their environment. And again, if we can get these, the city to say yes, or it is, our city runs on this word of saying moving forward. Well, that's moving forward. New generations online, new generations everywhere. Toronto has been pushing very hard to get people that are actually with their card just landed status, whatever, that they can vote. They've been battling it. Windsor, we tend to kind of slow down. Now they've implemented a new law for this time election. We can't sign up in January. It used to be January 1st. Well, they've jumped on that right away, saying, okay, well, it's going to be May now, so you can no longer sign up in January.
Oh, you got jumped on for that one too.
I'm always January 1st, right? It's January 2nd. I'm down there. I'm signing because you need.
Yeah.
It's not just about knocking on doors. You want to prep. Your social media now. You're getting your things online ready. Now you can't till May 1st. Not only that, there's going to be some changes with the sign bylaws as well, because we've ran into a lot of new
Thanks,
things.
Maggio.
I mean,
I'm shouting you out, Gabe. Thanks for changing the sign bylaws. I know you love me so much. Talk
I
to you
mean,
soon.
the city has saw things the last election they've never seen in elections. Like that, I came out with these 4x8 sheets, for example. Oh, we've never seen this before. We can't have you have it. There's no bylaw on it. Now there is. Now you can't have that. Personally, if you ask me, what I'd love to see during election times is no signs. Put the signs only on selected corners or city property, right? At the end of the day, that's be cleaner. And nobody's got to cross the line. Go green, right? Quebec does it. Montreal does it. Your signs aren't on everybody's lawns. Every corner, city says, here's the designated corners. Everyone gets one sign. And simple as this, you put them up there and let the elections roll and do the rest on your own. Instead of plastering signs across the city, then you're worried about this guy stealing this sign, this one spray painting it, or whatever, the drama that comes
The
behind
downtown
it.
ward, which I helped that election, last election, I helped run a unsuccessfully Caroline Postman campaign. It was the biggest argument between, Reno, Caroline, and Gabe. The sign war, and I was part of it. I was part of that sign war where we're looking for sign locations. We're pushing signs in tires out front of the tire place. We're pushing signs literally everywhere because it seemed like you had to crowd out the other candidate. You don't need, if you have a really good idea, you don't need to shout. You can whisper.
Correct.
And a whisper will light a fire faster than any yelling match will ever do. So to me, confident people with confident ideas don't need to be so insecure about promoting themselves. And I think we should allow that to be more of the demographic of the next election. So that bylaw is actually, I'm completely cool with that bylaw. I'm cool with the bylaws kind of reining in the signage. I'm cool with the bylaws maybe. For example, I'm hoping that Paul and I host a lot of debates on We Speak, because there shouldn't be just one forum for debate, which I thought was very, very
Limited and controlled.
It was limited, controlled, and then the only person or the only media source that really was going out there was Windsor Star. And then Windsor Square came out to try and be the catalyst, and there wasn't a real and their reports are just nasty. Windsor Star comes out with reports where they're clearly picking candidates. And I remember that being the case when I was helping run the last election, right? So I remember going to the end of the night. We had the election happen. Horowitz said, I submit and all that fun stuff. And I took Sam and we went to Kubota Club. And we're walking around Kubota Club and I shook everybody's hand. Hey, Mr. Francis, hey, blah, blah, blah. And we're shaking everybody's hand. And I got my Caroline Postma shirt on. By the way, Caroline didn't show up. But anyway, we confidently went and lost and we shook everybody's hand. And I remember leaving the Kubota Club and Sam looks at me and she says, Joss, is it just money? I'm like, oh yeah, it is. Yeah. See, this is why we got to stop pretending this is politics. This is a corporatocracy kind of fight. It's like a melee to see who is going to make the rules over the next business 4-year term. So instead of looking at it like it's a 4-year term of politics, it's not, guys. It's a 4-year business plan. It's an economic structure that if we allow people that are getting paid by NWIN and WFCU and mega corporate structures, if we keep allowing them to be in power, we will keep having mega, and all of the micro will always go unanswered. So all of our micro things, all the little things, like the little things that matter, all the little things that matter go overlooked or on my blind side, again, and where we don't really, we're not able to actually like engage in the real solutions because we're so worried about mega this and mega that. $80 million, come on, as an entrepreneur, give me $80 million and tell me to build a facility where we're going to actually have athletes come. Tell you what, I'll build something that actually has a Olympic standard instead of building a pool that doesn't have Olympic standard. We'll actually debate the hydro cost. We might even have solar panels on the roof to actually heat those pools. We would be having a real progressive entrepreneurial-like conversation.
Something you're going to benefit.
If I was spending $80 million.
Correct. It changes the whole conversation.
Changes the whole conversation. It's disgusting to me, and I mean actually disgusting where my stomach hurts when I read the aquatic centers in the red. What do you mean? You just built it. Come on, guys. You're not building even sustainable ideas, and you're pretending to be the corporate city of Windsor. So either we are a corporation, or we're a make-work project for corporations.
Exactly. Which
one are we? Is this the city of NWIN, or is this the city of Windsor? That's my biggest argument in the next election is I just want to bring voice to those people that we know it's NWIN. We know it's guys, we're not stupid. That's what I'm trying to say to the politicians. We are not dumb. We can see you.
And the problem with that is, and I tell voters, I says, do not underestimate that sheet that goes out. Vote, when the elections is done, they know what areas we have access to it. You've got the sheet. Okay, this area had only so many, people come out and vote. Your voice is no longer heard. So the next election, what's going to happen is a lot of candidates are going to look at that area. They're going to say, they don't even vote anyways. But at the end of the day, we got to get you to go out there because if you do not vote, you're not going to get the change. There's one particular area I'm targeting, and this coming up election that not a single dollar was spent there. and it's probably the area in South Windsor that needs the most amount of money. Remington Park has been neglected.
I 100% agree.
And it's been like years. And then it's like, this is the one thing I ran on. I was like, every dime you can get in right now to say, where am I going to spend it? Without a question, without a doubt, Remington Park needs it. Sidewalks, curbs, you name it, it needs it. Infrastructure there is terrible. The roads are gone. The sewage is gone. But then you look at half of the other wards in South Windsor as well. Francis aside right now, getting all kinds of money there. And that's what they look for, is where are the votes coming from? Where is the power coming from? And that's where everything is going.
And they keep fertilizing that power so they can keep seeding that area. And that's the sad part, is like that people always say, and I'm part of a lot of political conversations these days in Windsor, is if you don't win South Windsor, you can't win. Okay, but why have we created that? Why have we decided that one populace, or a part of our populace, which is, I'm sure, like, 30% of people, it's 30% of that or less than that. Why are we deciding that they make all the decisions? Since when is only, Russell Woods or one of these
the dominating voice?
They're the dominating voice because they can afford to be, and that's fine. But I'm from the school of one vote, one person, one vote.
And right now it's the East End, by the way.
Yeah.
South Windsor's got a good portion of it. It's the East End that has that power of putting one in and putting somebody out. So basically, you'll see a lot of money being dumped there as well. And down the road, you also notice the areas that are getting spent on quite a bit is you want to know who's running for mayor in the next 2 elections. Look at the area that's getting the most amount of money. That's the area that's going to be basically fed, because that's going to be your next candidate for mayoral as well. Look, we've got a lot of great ideas. Ideas cost money, but there's a lot of ideas that don't cost as much. I can save the city money as well. I spoke very hard on bike lanes, and we're still behind. Here it is 4 years later. Over the 4 years before, we're still quite behind. I had an excellent idea brought forward. We're bringing in bike lanes right now. They're already 15 years old in every other city, where the city's already getting rid of what we're putting in right now. But the city does it just to put a smile on people's face. You just paint a line on the road. We don't care if it's 1.5 feet wide. It's a bike lane. You've got what you want. It's terrible.
Except that you can still get hit in the back of the head with a truck mirror, which I have
With a
had.
mirror, with a
I've
mirror.
actually had the experience of being hit in the back of the head while biking on Riverside Drive with a truck mirror, being thrown onto the sidewalk and damn near down the hill. Pardon my French, because I was just hit so hard in my 1.5 foot space that, okay, well, I'm almost 3 feet wide, it feels like, and that's a 1.5 foot, like you're saying. So it's like we're literally setting it. Every time we do something, we are thinking backwards and setting you up for failure. We can't heat the pools that we build. You can't actually bike on the bike lanes,
But they're there visually,
But they're
right?
there. So, okay, we solved your problem. No, you didn't. You made a campaign decision. You made a decision to try to buy votes, which is what I feel is, when you spend $50,000 on a banner in Detroit, that's a vote buy, or that's like a weird legacy thing that you're trying to do. It's gross. It's all gross.
You see a lot of that. Like right now, if you read the papers just a couple of weeks ago, $1 million was handed to each candidate again. And this is the election thing, right? Again, it's $1 million can't do you anything. But where were you the past 4 years? I want what you committed to. I want what you promised. I want the things that you promised change. But if you notice now, everything I promised you 4 years ago, these current candidates are now working on it last year, because there was a study done, correct me if you're wrong, you can probably look it up online here, in Toronto, where they studied politics. They say that the voter cannot remember anything and does not care to remember anything more than 6 months. So it's everything you do within that last year, or the election year is what voters remember. The past
So they've
3
done
years, they
that.
won't.
So they've looked at, okay, the 3 first years we're going to coast. We're going to try to not make any ripples. We're not going to try and piss anybody off. And then that last year, we're going to take all that little slush fund secret money that they always put aside. Apparently, Windsor has these huge budgets of secret money in secret accounts that only come to rise when you need to buy votes. That's a very interesting thing to, not to bring it up publicly, but I'm absolutely going to keep bringing it up publicly, that we are clearly misappropriating funds from the wrong funds in order to get the wrong people elected, so that they can get checks from the people that they're working for, and those are other corporations.
Exactly.
It is absolutely a fact that NWIN has a bigger role in our municipality than almost any other individual could possibly have. If you and I speak from now till the election, we have a very little amount of influence by comparison to the CEO of NWIN. Right?
Exactly.
And that's gross, guys. Come on. We cannot allow the people that we are victims to keep. It's like Stockholm syndrome. It's like we've fallen in love with our slave masters who are enslaving us with financial means.
They're afraid of change here, I realize, in a city. The way I look at it is, look, if you let somebody in for 4 years and it doesn't go so well, guess what? Fire them. That first thing a big company does when something goes wrong, what do? Get rid of the CEO. Start getting rid of the managers. Get rid of the people that are running it. And that's the same concept we have to have. Right now, there's a lot of things that went wrong. But then if you read the paper a couple of weeks ago, they got their $1 million. Now they have the upper hand on future candidates. automatically you're putting that into people's head that, okay, this person's going to be better because he just got $1 million. He's going to put it. What'd you give me for the past 4 years? Let's bring these ideas back up. Not only ideas, make them reality. This city has a lot of potential. This is, I call it a little oil field that can burst. We've got a bridge coming in that's being built by our government. I brought it up last time. Nobody's cared to approach the government on this. All that money is going to Toronto infrastructure. What about Windsor? We're the ones that gave you this road.
We're hiring outside companies to do our work. Is a big,
and
huge
we
problem.
want compensation on that. We want a percentage to come to us through our infrastructure as well. And you brought that up about hiring and bringing money and whatever. Look at that tunnel. We revamped the whole tunnel. American side, Canadian side. Where'd all the employees come from and the workers? Not one here. What happened to that? Where was our mayor at that time and our political leaders, our council? Where were they when they were hiring to do our side of the tunnel as well? So now we've benefited the American side that did this whole job. These are our jobs you just took away. And this should have been given to our people.
We seem good at giving Windsor money to other cities instead of bringing it to Windsor. It's backwards. Chris, any point to bring in? You looked that up?
No, not really, but I did want to ask, and I think we only have a couple minutes left here, but I did want to ask you, Mohammed, I know there's a distrust around politicians, so what did you, or are you going to do to help combat that?
You know, the one thing I'm going to be targeting hopefully again this year is the same platform I had last year, okay? Go after things, give you the idea. And last election, I also said it. I went after the government, the upper level government. The only candidate did this. I don't want the 4 years. I want the 3 year. I also want to hold candidates liable for their lies. You go into work, you lie, cheat, steal, you're gone. You're fired instantly. So if I lie in my resume, it's only a matter of time you're going to find out I lied to you. You're going to fire me. So I think we should have the same thing. But then what happens? The taxpayers got to pay for that by-election. So I said, you know what? If I happen to mislead you, I'm willing to secure that money aside, that if I mislead or do anything wrong that I'm not supposed to be doing, I will pay for the by-election. As simple as that. To secure that, we got to get that trust back in the system. And then hopefully, if elected, brought in there, then I'm working for you. You're not just voting me, getting your voice every 4 years. As I said at that time, putting an office in, I'll have boxes in there. So if there's a big idea, yes, you've elected me and trusted me to make that decision, but at the end of the day, I still need to come to you. You're my boss. Hey, this is the idea, but I need your opinion on it. So now you have 3 boxes in that office, and you say, here's my Ward 10. I want your opinion. Yes, no. Do you want this road to happen? Then you have the other box for the rest of the city. Yes, no. So when I go sit in front of the mayor, city council in my city, I say, my people have chosen this. They've instructed me to do this. So I prefer to see this, but they've spoken. So now when I'm back up 4 years from now, I did what you wanted me to do, not what I thought was right, okay, or wrong. So I will still give you that freedom in the whole 4 years. You're going to be voting on everything that's very important. It's your money at the end of the day. And that's what I think is very important.
Mohammed Chams, thank you very much, brother. I honestly appreciate you having you coming down here and making some time for me. And it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to meet you. I was looking forward to it, and I think I'll help you work on your campaign because I want to see your visions come to reality, which I think are not your visions. I think they're just visions that make sense. And if visions make sense, they make dollars. If we make dollars, we can provide the people in our city with the actual life that they deserve.
That's right.
And to me, it's time that people like you and myself engage in those conversations, wade into those fights, bring our swords with us. I'm tired of only taking the beating. It's time we actually give a little bit one to these ideas. And now we're not beating on the people. We're beating on the ideas. It's time that we get the right ideas out there from the right people and get rid of the wrong people that are in the places for the wrong reasons. Guys, it's been a great episode. Immigration and municipal affairs. Look us up on YouTube. Check us out on WeSpeak.ca. You're going to be available to find this podcast on multiple platforms for download and for listenership. Please share with your friends. Tell your neighbors. When we speak, you're heard. So help us talk a little louder. Next episode.
Here come on back top. He come grooving slowly. He got juju eyeball. He want holy roller. He got hair down to his knee. Got to be a joker. He just do what you please. Yeah.
Don't engage in that. We do this together.
He wear no shoe shine. He got